Over the last few decades, most people have learned what to look for when a young person, most often a young woman, develops an unhealthy relationship with their body. Typically, it has to do with that body getting thinner. But recently, I spoke with Dr. Roberto Olivardia, a clinician who's studied body image issues for over 30 years, and he thinks that society isn't as good at noticing problems that emerge in young boys. Because for young men, the obsession often isn't about getting thinner, it's about becoming more muscular. And that can make it really tricky to notice because putting on muscle and working out are things society often praises as progress and dedication. And while most athletic young men won't develop a problem, Dr. Olivardia says he feels this trend of body image issues among boys and men is getting worse. In fact, he's now seeing boys as young as 10 years old in his clinic, and he says social media is a big reason why.
Having done this work for as long as I have, to see pre-social media and post it's a totally different animal.
And if you're struggling with body image issues or an eating disorder, you can find help by going to the BBC Action Line or by visiting the US National Eating Disorders Organization. We've links to both of those in the description below. Dr. Olivardia, this is a fascinating conversation because I think a lot of people have now become aware of what an unhealthy, overly thin teenage girl looks like and understand when it's starting to go wrong. But I think we don't really understand the same thing about boys in a realm in which we are praising boys for having muscles. Do we need a similar conversation now about fitness and what a fit body looks like?
Oh, 100%. And with boys, it is different because historically, I mean, there's research into the 1600s of women's, the sort of oppressive messaging that women have been getting around being thin and being feminine. With men, it's been a little bit different. Where it really came into sort of popular culture in research that we've done is really in the late 70s, early 80s, we started to see this more proliferation of muscular bodies. It's not an accident that Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone were the biggest box office stars. Their bodies were their commodity, in a lot of ways. Just like we have conversations with girls and women that, your body does not define you as a woman, as a girl. Those conversations have honestly been ignored a lot of the time with boys. Those who are most muscular are seen as most masculine. And that is absolutely being promoted, if not probably at its highest peak now in social media, in this so-called manosphere.
Take us back to when you first came up with this phrase, muscle dysmorphia, back in the 1990s, and why you were concerned about it back then.
Yeah, so in the mid-90s, when I was doing research on eating disorders in boys and men, I would get a lot of phone calls for studies of men saying, well, I used to have anorexia nervosa or bulimia nervosa, and I don't have that anymore, but I'm kind of still in this obsessive pursuit of muscle, except now it's almost in this sort of socially sanctioned way. They're getting sort of, if anything, complimented. Oh, you have so much discipline. You have so much willpower, that we don't think of a muscular guy as having a certain pathology. And most muscular guys don't have a certain pathology. But these are men who, despite being large, muscular, might be seen as the ideal by a lot of people. They think they look too small. They worry that tomorrow they can suddenly get scrawny. They are constantly thinking about their body size and whatnot to a degree that it really causes impairment in many areas of their life.
So talk about what's changing and what you as a clinician are seeing today that you weren't seeing 5-10 years ago.
Well, first, social media has created a culture in which everybody is an expert. And so when an influencer is espousing what they're espousing with no, scientific credibility, I find as a clinician that, my word, a physician's word, an expert in something is either discounted completely or is at least put on par with somebody,
a TikTok influencer, for example.
With a TikTok influencer because they have 10 million followers. Like it's just this instant sort of credibility.
It must drive you crazy. As a doctor, it must drive you crazy.
100%. And why is not because of an ego issue. It's because people are being harmed. It's that people are getting information. And I mean, years ago with the internet, I mean, this brings us way back when that came out. You know, we were worried because we're like, oh, there are all these like pro eating disorder sort of groups and all this, but somehow that was that felt more contained in some ways. This is like a whole other level. 10 years ago, if I met a young man, and I saw this a decade ago, who would take a hammer to his face, like you see with some of these looks maxing influencers, that would have been branded almost as psychotic behavior a decade ago because it was so unusual. It was something that even, you know, people who had obsessions with their body image, who might not go that far, would say, oh, that's like far. When you see and you get exposed, and mind you, I work with boys as young as 10 who struggle with body image issues, and with teenagers who are very vulnerable, who are craving what we all crave. We all want acceptance and we all want connection. These things are now normalized in such a way that because you have influencers who just get a lot of attention and get a lot of money and, you know, their 15 minutes of fame and their followers that somehow establish some credibility that tell these young men, if you do this, you're going to get access to women and to power and to respect and all of those things.
Talk about how the age group that you're seeing this muscle dysmorphia and obsession with maxing out muscles has got younger and younger. And why do you think that is?
Definitely, it's gotten younger and younger. I think part of that is because you have people speaking to that population, and you have young people who have access to those voices through social media. One of the first questions I ask of male patients that I work with in this is, who do you follow on social media? And many of them I know, and the ones I don't, I start looking at their content because I realize that I'm meeting with someone 50 minutes a week or once or twice a week, and they might be listening to that other person for 10 to 15 hours a week. I mean, like that's what we're, you know, parents and mental health providers and physicians are up against.
So doctor, how would you, because there is this sort of line between healthy fitness and unhealthy fitness, and it's not always easy to spot it, what do you say to parents or coaches to help them find ways to spot the difference?
You know, I co-wrote a book 25 years ago, The Adonis Complex. And I remember we would get sometimes pushback that would say, oh, well, then, you know, you're anti-exercise and anti-eating healthy, which is not at all the case. That because we have major health problems that affect young people as well in terms of obesity and not exercising enough and sleep deprivation. So when I think of that line, I think of a couple things. First, does the person see themselves in an accurate way? If you're a parent or a coach and your child or student or athlete is saying, oh my gosh, I'm so fat and they're not, or I'm so scrawny and they're quite muscular, then that's a red flag. Secondly is, how much is it impairing other aspects of their life? Because, you know, I have patients who they could be obsessed with working out and they're at the gym 5-6 hours a day, and they're so exhausted. I mean, anyone would be if you're lifting weights 5-6 hours a day, that they have no time for anything else. And it just becomes this sort of cycle they get caught in. And I am not against the message of healthy eating, healthy exercise, healthy sleep, doing things that are good for the body to fulfill the values of health and engagement in life. Exercise is good, but 10 hours of exercise is not necessarily better. You know, 8 hours of sleep is great, but if you're getting 15 hours of sleep, something is probably not going right. And then certainly if they're engaging in any dangerous behaviors like steroid use, substance use, I have many patients who get addicted to opiates because of the pain that their body is in from over exerting themselves at the gym.
Such an interesting conversation, and clearly so much more than just a conversation about muscles. Dr. Olivardia, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.